Episode 255, Rebuilding Confidence After Toxic Relationships with Alicia Hall.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with the coach? Here we go.
In this heartfelt and healing conversation, Heather sits down with self-worth coach Alicia Hall, who helps men and women recover from the effects of toxic relationships by restoring wholeness through spiritual connection. Alicia shares her personal journey of escaping cycles of fear, shame, and self-blame, and how she found lasting safety and peace through Christ-centered healing. Together they explore what makes a relationship truly toxic, how trauma reshapes the nervous system, and why compassion, not shame, is the key to transformation. Alicia offers hope-filled insight into rebuilding trust, restoring confidence, and remembering divine identity. Her message reminds us that healing doesn't erase your story. It changes how you see it. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. I'm so happy to have Coach Alicia Hall with me. Alicia is like bebopping around the world with her family. So I'm always excited to hear where she is and connect with her a little bit. How are you, Alicia?
I am great, Heather. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Why don't you, before we get started, Alicia has been on before, but I'd love for you to kind of give us a little background, a little update on your life and why you do what you do before we get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a self-worth coach for women and men suffering from the effects of toxic relationships, and I help them restore wholeness and confidence through spiritual connection. I am raising 5 children, 2 of which are now young adults and living in Utah doing their own things. And my husband and our 3 youngest are traveling. Like Heather said, we're traveling the world, but we're doing it full time, meaning we don't have an actual home or anything. We have our suitcases and that's about it. And we are exploring the world and having a great time.
So fun.
Yeah, it's been life-changing. It's been just open our minds to other people and other cultures and lands, and just finding ways to connect with them it's been a blast.
So cool. Tell me, how do you guys have like an end in sight, or does this seem to be like what the future seems to hold for you?
For right now, it's what the future holds. As far as the end in sight, it's all in the Lord's hands. We are doing this because it was by inspiration, and we just trust that He's going to lead us where He needs us to be next.
It's exciting, and I love to hear all the different places that you are. So thanks for making some time for us today. We're going to talk today about just different dynamics, I think, in relationship. But one of those things we're going to talk about involves toxic relationships. And before we get started, I would love if you could just define for us what a toxic relationship even is. I think that gets thrown around a lot out there, and I think we should be clear on what definition we're working from.
Yes, for sure. So while all relationships can have conflict and struggles, right? A toxic relationship specifically is one that consistently undermines your sense of well-being, your happiness, and especially your safety. And this can look like continual patterns of emotional harm and control, where they're telling you how you should feel, who you can spend your time with, and what they expect of you, what they expect you to do in the relationship. They will also belittle you so that they can appear superior to you and make you believe that you need them. There's a lot of manipulation and gaslighting tactics that they use that cause you to question your reality and making you feel like you're to blame for their behaviors or reactions. So, for example, they might say something like, well, if you didn't do or say that, then I wouldn't have done or said this. They make you feel like you're to blame. And all of this can lead you to low self-esteem, questioning your self-worth, and deteriorating your mental and your emotional health.
I I'm listening to that definition, and it just makes me I sink smaller and smaller just even listening to it, even though I'm not even interacting with somebody who is at this moment being that way. So it's interesting. I don't know, just hearing those things as it can be difficult.
It is. It's absolutely challenging, and you don't really know that you're in it until after you're in it because they put on this facade of, oh, I'm here for you and you need me, and they play to your weaknesses and then they just kind of almost flip a switch almost. At least that was my experience.
You could share with us a little bit about what happens, and maybe you did just a little bit already, but what happens to somebody's self-worth when they have and their confidence when this is a kind of relationship that they are in?
Yes. So after a toxic relationship, your sense of worth and confidence can feel like it's been stripped away. When love becomes tied to criticism, control, or neglect, your brain learns to associate connection with pain, and you start to question your value, not because you've lost it, but because your mind has been trained to expect rejection instead of safety. Now, your brain desires safety, okay? Your brain's job is to keep you alive. And so it looks for patterns of safety based on what your nervous system identifies as what's safe. And in a toxic relationship, you will learn that it's safer to keep them happy through people pleasing so that you can avoid their negative behavior or reactions and then receive in return their approval of you. In situations where you're being blamed or manipulated, your nervous system learns that it's safer to accept the blame on yourself, to just go with it. And not only that, but your brain will look for the evidence to think like, maybe they're right about me. And then you'll just claim fault within yourself. So your confidence doesn't just disappear in these relationships, it gets buried under the fear and self doubt that you had adopted to survive in the relationship. And healing begins when you learn to separate who you are from what you've experienced, from their behavior, from their reactions. And that's when you can start to rebuild your confidence from truth instead of from their approval of you.
I think that, separating who you are from what you've experienced is such a valuable, just a valuable statement in and of itself because
Mhm.
your experiences do not make you you. Like, yes,
Yes.
you experience them, but you get to choose, and sift through who you're going to be, regardless of the experiences that you have in your
Yeah.
life.
But that's a difficult transition when you've
Yeah,
been in the situation because all you can see
absolutely.
is that fear, right? Because your nervous system is always hijacked, feeling dysregulated and looking for that safety net. But that safety net turns into what other people would deem as toxic. So, for example, where you're finding safety in blaming yourself, you're finding safety in keeping them happy with you. That's not happiness. That's not living free to who you want to be, right? You lose a sense of yourself in that way.
Yeah, I think there's a piece like you have to become really good at turning inward and seeing what is you
Yeah.
and that is difficult, especially in the midst of relationships like this where it keeps you questioning and on your toes and always looking and scanning for danger. Our brain does desire to stay safe. I think you mentioned that,
Mhm.
but it keeps us stuck in those patterns. And how how does it do that? Why does it do that?
Yeah, so this is something that I personally struggled with for a long time. And as I've done the research to understand even myself better and why my brain is stuck in these habits, I came across the work of somebody called Dr. Jeff Holzclaw, and he wrote a summary titled The Brain God Gave Us. And I found this to be really helpful in understanding how the brain works and why, after years of being separated from the toxic relationship, a person can still remain stuck in those patterns of fear and doubt. And he shares how your brain's main job isn't to think, it's to problem solve. And it's to keep you alive by predicting danger based on what you've experienced in the past. So if your past included instability, neglect, criticism, or betrayal, then your brain memorizes those experiences as warnings of danger. Even, even if you're physically safe in the present moment, it can still interpret uncertainty as a threat. And that's why you might find yourself overthinking, second guessing, trying to control situations. It's your brain's way of keeping you safe. But here's the best news. He also shares that we are given the ability to reason, meaning that God gave us the ability to act and respond from the present moment instead of from the past. So when you're able to pause, you can move into a place of curiosity about why I'm feeling this way, or be curious about the story that your brain's serving you in the moment. And this will enable you to maintain control, and it gives you the ability to respond instead of react in the moment, and giving the spirit even a chance to lead instead of the fear.
So, what happens typically in someone's life for them to realize that they don't want to live this way anymore? What is it that kind of propels somebody to change things?
Yeah. So for most people, I have found that it's not one big moment. It's usually a slow realization that they're tired of living small and they desire true connection. It's that quiet voice that says, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep living this way. I know that for me, I was wanting to be done with living in constant fear, anxiety, and shame of who I was. And while for some of my clients, they don't want another unstable relationship, or they're tired of feeling unseen. They're ready for something more with their lives, and they want to stop apologizing for who they are. So similar to what I was even experiencing. Something that I help my clients recognize, though, in their desire for something different is this is their spirit whispering to them that there's more for you. And it becomes a moment where they can stop fighting for worthiness and start remembering that they already have it and where it comes from.
Remembering peace, because it's always there, right? It just gets buried by our experiences and the things that we internalize about
Yeah.
ourselves that aren't truth, but we start to think they are. So, remembering is so
Yes.
good. Yeah, so good. You mentioned earlier that fears actually stored like in our those get stored in our body and our nervous system. Can you explain how the brain predicts future danger based on past danger like that, and how you've seen coaching help people be able to move and create safer spaces and connections?
Yes. When you've been deeply hurt or betrayed by someone that you trusted, someone that you devoted yourself to and sacrificed your own happiness to keep them happy with you, your nervous system adapts to protect you from future pain. And over time, it begins to anticipate pain or rejection before it even happens. So rather than waiting for that evidence of safety, your brain learns to scan for the environment constantly for potential threats. And I remember being in this place. I had an experience where we had just moved across the country. I was newly married. And because I shared children with this former relationship, we still had to stay in contact. And even though we were states apart, my body remained on alert, always scanning for clues and those cues of danger. And I recall a particular time when I was driving home and there was a car that was with tinted windows. I remember it was following really close behind me and it kept taking the same turns I was taking. And I felt an instant rush of fear and panic take over my whole body. My mind went to this place of, what if he's here? What if he's coming after me to run me off the road and to take my children? Now, I can laugh today, but it was very real for me in the moment. But I reacted this way because our nervous system becomes conditioned to respond to certain cues of safety or danger based on our past experiences. And often these cues do start from our infancy. So the fear that I felt in that moment was tied to memories of feeling unsafe before. And in that moment, I was recalling the past demands and threats that I have experienced from this person before. As a result, the survival patterns that I had developed continued to operate in that moment, even though he wasn't physically there. So, cues of danger are not always obvious or dramatic. They can be as subtle as a tone of voice, a disappointing or disapproving expression, a brief pause in a text, or even complete silence from somebody. And when these cues appear, your brain will fill in the gap of uncertainty with old memories. And this is how your brain tries to make sense of the sudden emotions or feelings like fear, anxiety, and hesitation, and even worry that will arise within you. So when this happens, the nervous system becomes dysregulated, and it's leading you to react automatically from the states of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So, in these moments, your brain can no longer accurately assess the facts of the situation, and instead it falls back into habitual conditioned reactions rooted from past pain. And that's what was happening to me. But this is where coaching makes a big difference because it can help interrupt that process. I remember my first experience being coached, and I was being coached on this situation and how I was being treated. And I remember the coach said to me, it was really powerful at the time, this person might always treat you this way, but you get to decide what you will believe and who you will be. And what this did for me was put the power back into my life and remembering that I still have a choice. So coaching brings back choices. It helps you practice the skill of being present, to slow down, to take a breath, and to name what's happening in the moment from curiosity. So if I was able to apply this in that moment, I could have said to myself, I'm feeling unsafe right now. Labeling how I'm feeling and acknowledging that my brain is predicting a threat. The ability to pause and identify in the moment where you are at and what you're feeling enables you to shift from reaction into reasoning. And instead of judgment, you can choose compassion and understanding as to why you're feeling this way, why your brain would serve you with the worst case scenario. And compassion can help soften the situation, normalizing your reactions so that you can regulate your nervous system back into safety and to choose intentionality in how you'll respond going forward. This could have saved me from an extra 20-minute deviation drive home that day just to recognize like this is just somebody else getting home. So over time, when you practice this in allowing yourself to be present and staying curious and normalizing how you feel, it helps to retrain your brain to associate connection with safety again and showing your body that peace is possible even when your brain and your nervous system are trying to tell you differently.
Our brains, our bodies, our nervous system, it's so fascinating. There's so many facets to it. And I just love to continually learn about it because there's just so much to know and to understand. And when we do, I think it offers us some compassion that we need in order to use all of it to work together properly and to use it to own our experiences rather than to be victims to our experiences. So maybe you could talk
For
a little bit
sure.
about self-compassion there.
Yes. So self-compassion is one of the best gifts that God has given us to heal because it bridges the awareness of what you're feeling and believing into that healing that you need. So I used to shame myself for allowing my ex's reactions to upset me so easily. I used to believe that there was something wrong with me for constantly feeling anxious and afraid. And I believed that I shouldn't feel this way and that maybe if I was more willing to forgive, then I wouldn't. Can you hear the judgment towards how I
Yeah,
felt?
yeah. Like, totally gaslighting yourself, right? Like, you're
Yes,
not only
yes.
getting it from somebody else outside of you, but you're doing the same
Mm-hmm.
thing to yourself.
Yes, and that's what happens is you find safety in doing and treating yourself the way that they treat
Yeah.
you. As if I treat myself this way first, maybe it'll hurt less coming from them, right? But judgment and shame are or at least what kept my nervous system stuck in the protective reaction. And it caused me to continue the pattern of finding safety through fear and anxiety. So that became my safe place. But here's the truth. Remaining stuck in protective reactions is never an indication of your ability to forgive someone, and you can't shame yourself into change. But as you replace it with compassion, then your nervous system finds safety again that aligns with the truth of who you are, and you learn to love yourself through it. So when you meet your pain with understanding instead of judgment, then your body feels safe enough to release those old patterns. And compassion helps you to say, makes sense that I learned to respond this way, but I don't have to stay here. And that's where the transformation begins. That's when you get to use that agency and that choice of recognizing, wait, I can choose something different here.
So it sounds like, if I'm looking back at our conversation, we've talked a little bit about recognizing when you are in a relationship that is harmful to you, and then like how you can learn to keep yourself safe in that and have that self-compassion to take a step and forward and to start making some
Yeah.
changes. When somebody has got to that place, I would imagine then the next step would be learning how to trust people again. And so for somebody who's lived in a situation like this, after managing themselves and trying to manage
Yeah.
somebody else's, emotions or whatever, what does it look like to
Yes.
begin trusting again?
Yeah. So trust begins in small steps. And the important part here is it doesn't start with putting your trust in other people. It's about putting your trust in yourself. And this looks like creating that safety within yourself that we've been talking about. And this comes through listening to your emotions without judgment, setting healthy boundaries that align with what you are okay with, and allowing yourself to be guided by the Spirit instead of fear. And faith is what makes that possible. This is what helped me, because faith reminds you that your worth was never tied to someone else's behavior or their approval of you. When you put your faith in the Savior and in His love, this will help you to recognize that broken trust or the way others treated you doesn't define you, but it will refine the way that you see yourself and those that you experience that toxic relationship with. Actually, I'm going to share a personal experience that I had. Our family, we traveled to Jerusalem. We got to tour the Holy Lands. And this was at a very unique time because the day that we arrived, the airport was even being shot missiles and they were defending themselves. And yet they were still allowing people to come in. This is very common for them, apparently, we learned. But I mean, we were hearing the sirens to go hide multiple times throughout our trip. And every time I just felt this huge sense of safety come over me. And it just kind of hit me of like, why can't I feel this safe all the time? Even though I'm not like, I feel like I should be in real danger here, right? There's missiles. They're telling us to go seek a bomb shelter. And yet, as I'm praying in that moment with missiles coming and I'm being told like, you're fine, you're going to be okay. And this overwhelming sense of peace comes over me. And I was just like, I would just love to feel this way all the time. Now, I was in this relationship with my previous spouse, not very long, but because we shared children, it was ongoing 20 years of this toxic relationship. And so the Lord has been working with me and helping me to find that safety within myself. And I discovered a new way to do that when we were standing in the Garden of Gethsemane. There was nobody else there but our family and a tour guide. And it was in that moment where the Spirit confirmed the truth of what took place there, of the Savior's atonement. And I just felt that overwhelming sense of His love, of why He would do that for us. And as I contemplated this, the Spirit said to me, allow the Savior's love to be enough. And since that moment, anytime I found myself either feeling alone or frustrated, misunderstood, even afraid or worried about the future, I remembered those words. And I was able to put into practice what it's like to allow His love to embrace how I felt in the moment. And I put my faith in His love enough to let go of whatever was troubling me, knowing that He understands it. He understands how I feel, and I just allow Him to meet me there in that place, to hold that space for me, which enabled me to let it go. And this practice has really changed my life. it has transformed the deepest part of the fears that I carried for so long of never being enough because I couldn't get anything right or do anything right for those people I was trying to keep happy, and believing that I was too difficult to love because I wasn't receiving the love I was hoping to receive by keeping them happy, right? But I learned to know how loved I was by the Lord. And instead of needing others to change their behaviors or needing their approval of me to feel good or to feel confident about myself, I was able to show up knowing how loved that I already am. And learning to see the Savior in those moments of conflict, even with anybody in my life, has helped me to see that the fear or projection reaction in others as well, because we're all either acting from fear or from love. So instead of reacting in their reaction or to the reaction, or even defending myself, I'm able to remain calm, stay curious, and hold space for compassion for them as well. This has helped me step into seeking to understand where they're coming from without feeling like I need to protect myself. So that same practice I've been putting towards myself in my own healing and safety, I can now use that towards other people and to see them from that place, recognizing that He's holding space for me and His love is enough for me and it's enough for them too. And doing this work has helped me live more into my truest self, that part of me that I thought I needed to protect for so many years.
Such a sweet story. Thank you for sharing it with us. We learn so well from stories, and I think like that's a piece that I can internalize for me. And I think also it's a beautiful example of confidence really does come from changing within. It doesn't come from changing our outside circumstances, and I really appreciate the visual of being able to see that. And I feel like you've kind of shared with us what that process of becoming whole looks like a little bit through that story, but I'm wondering if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you begin to see yourself through God's eyes, your confidence and your trust will start to grow again. But when I talk about bringing my clients back to wholeness, it's not about being perfect because you're still going to have reactions, right? You're human. You're still going to have moments where maybe even your nervous system is reacting. You find yourself back into those habits. And that's okay because it's an opportunity to practice that compassion for yourself and where maybe you haven't given it yet. But wholeness is about being aligned with the truth of who you are. And you can't do this without learning to pause, to get curious about the current thoughts and emotions and the practice of self-compassion, because it is in allowing where you are and what you're feeling with compassion and letting the Savior meet you there that you can begin to remember the truth of who you are. And I believe true confidence is remembering your divine identity and living from that awareness. I created a Believe in You course that I will share a little bit more with you at the end. But through this course, we focus on this alignment. And I teach how to live in harmony with your true identity instead of reacting from that fear. And the more that you practice the awareness and compassion, the more confidence naturally grows from within you.
Thank you. I think we get stuck in this trap of thinking that growth and confidence or just progression in itself is a linear, like upward climb
Yeah.
line. And it kind of, like it is, but also there are dips in that line. Like it's not a straight line that
Mm.
goes up, right? It ebbs and flows, it goes up and down. And that's
Yeah.
part of the process
Yeah.
is taking the knowledge that we've learned on that upward climb and then applying it in those low moments when they do come back, right? Like
Yes.
it's not like we are void of difficult anymore.
No, for sure. And I've learned that when I allow myself to even go through that ebb and flow, and even in those moments when I remember that compassion, I get to experience a deeper expression of God's love. Like I get to experience that towards myself. And that has been more healing for me than anything else. That I don't have to define myself by what I experienced in the past. I get to define myself by that love that I'm experiencing through God.
I would love to just know, like, what's one thing that you wish everyone who struggles feeling confident could know about healing?
Yeah. So healing doesn't erase your story. However, it can rewrite how you see it. The pain that you've carried isn't a sign of weakness. It's a reflection of how deeply you've loved and how much you have endured. Those times that when you find yourself back into the habit or back in that protection space and you're reactive, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means that your body's just remembering that this is how I've kept myself safe. But when you meet your pain with compassion, as we've been talking about, and invite that Savior into that space with you, the fear, the doubt, the shame, it all loses power. And you get to start to see that every part of your story can become a place of healing.
I love that. You're not going to erase the story. We wish that we could sometimes, but do we really? I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day. Like, yes, there's so much I've learned. Would I ever go back? No, I wouldn't go back, but I don't know, like, I'm grateful for who I've become in
Yes.
in the process that I'm living in the fullness, more in
Yeah.
the fullness of myself than I was before. I don't know, it's a catch-22, right? Like, no, we don't
No,
wanna
for
go back.
sure.
We would love to get rid of some of those experiences, but also look who I am today because of.
Yeah. Well, and with that said, Heather, too, is for the longest time, my brain kept replaying those memories. I kept remembering those awful parts. And I kept saying, like, I just was stuck. And I was stuck in that fear. So the more that I practiced that safety and the more that I allowed myself to step into that growth and seeing the choices that I have for myself and creating that wholeness within myself, the stories dissolved. Like, I have to think about it to remember it, but I don't need to. I mean, it's really transformational. Absolutely. When you're willing to
Yeah,
do the
that's
work.
that's such a great point, right? Like, you can't erase it, but it has less of a hold on you than it did before, right?
Mhm.
It's not a constant loop in your brain, and I think that's really good to recognize. Yeah, it's not always gonna hold on so strongly inside of you. So good. Okay, you gave us a little bit of a teaser about your Believe in You course. Tell us a little bit about it. How does it help people move from fear this into real transformation?
Yeah. So my Believe in You course is something that I just came up with over the past month that I just feel like was inspired by the spirit. And it is my first ever group course that I've done in my program. I'm still offering my personal one-on-one. So if you want to take part in that, you can do that as well. But this group course is designed to help you rebuild your confidence and self-worth from the inside out. And we start with awareness, understanding how your beliefs and your emotions were formed. And then we move into that curiosity and compassion, understanding where your beliefs and fears are coming from and learning to meet yourself with love instead of judgment or shame. And then from there, we focus on that connection, that realigning with your divine identity. And I decided that it would be best to do this as a group because often what I find, while personal one-on-one sessions are very private and they're personal, however, a lot of my clients have a harder time seeing that outside perspective of seeing how there's a possibility of them to see it from a different perspective. And I know that group coaching can offer the benefit of you're watching somebody else get coached through similar experiences, those similar emotions that you're going through. And it will give you that outside perspective that you're likely needing. So while both courses are awesome, you can decide and discern what's going to work for you. But through these practical exercises in the Believe in You program, the group support, we're going to do a stillness practice, which involves meditation that will help silence the mind that keeps replaying everything. And it's all Christ-centered coaching. That is the coaching that I offer. Then you will learn how to calm your fears. You'll break the cycles of shame and self-doubt, and you feel confident again. So if this is something that you feel like you've been looking for, I'd love to invite you to join the Believe in You waitlist today because I haven't completely finished it yet. Maybe by the time this airs, it will absolutely be done. I'm sure it will. But you'll be the first to know when you register. You will be the first to know when the group call opens. Plus, you'll get to receive the free guided workbook so that you can get started right away. And you can do this by visiting my website, aliciahallcoaching.com, or I will have a link that you can click in the show notes from this podcast as well. And you'll be able to get on the wait list and receive all the details for signing up. But I want to say, like, to everybody listening, Your story isn't over. You can find confidence, peace, and lasting joy. I certainly did. And healing begins when you choose to believe in yourself.
Thank you, first of all, for sharing about your Believe in You course. I think that's awesome. I'm excited to see that unfold. Those listening or watching on YouTube, like you, I'm sure you can feel the same thing that I feel from Alicia. There's just a calm that comes from you. What a gift that is to people around you. Because and I know that you probably don't feel like you're always living in calm, but I can tell that you have nourished that. You're
Yeah.
learning how to live from that place.
Yeah.
And it's contagious. You can feel it. So
Oh,
thank
thanks,
you for
Heather.
sharing
I
that
haven't
calmness with
always
us.
felt this way. So it has absolutely come from practice because I have not always
Yeah.
felt this way. But
Yeah.
thank
Well,
you.
you can tell. You can tell. So thank you. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us today, for sharing your calmness with us and the resources that you have. So I appreciate it.
Of course.
And I was going to ask you to share with people how they can connect with you, but I think you probably already did. You've told us your website.
Yes.
And we're going to find the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes. So I think
Yes.
I think we've got it. Thanks, Alicia.
Perfect. No, thank you, Heather.
It was a good one. Good conversation. Thanks for teaching and instructing us. We hope we see you guys again next week on another episode of Latter-day Life Coaches. Have a good week, everybody. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.